What's up, everybody? It is roster cutdown day. We are officially past the deadline now, 1 o'clock Pacific time, for teams to submit to the league their first official 53-man roster, making about 1,200 players free agents today, at least after they get through waivers. And just an annual reminder as well, I think it's about 2% of players get claimed on waivers. And so I know there's a lot of hand-wringing sometimes about players at the back end of the roster that we fall in love with and whether they'll get claimed or not. Most of them don't. But the Seahawks traditionally are one of the last teams to officially announce their roster cuts. And so I don't know if we'll get the final tally while I'm on the air with you here over the next hour and a half or so before I got to move on. So we'll go over some of the stuff that we know so far, and then get into some of the ideas about what some of these moves might mean and what might still lie ahead. And then while we're live, we'll get your reactions, your takes, your speculation, and then hopefully we'll get some finality while we're here. We can discuss that as well. This is Seahawks Forever. Let's go.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
All right, you guys, so I've got my final projected 53-man roster up on the screen, and I've made changes where they are applicable. And let's just start with the big news of the day. At least as far as surprises go, there's really two. The release of Marquez Valdes-Scantling is something that had become clearer and clearer over the last couple of weeks, with Torrey Horton showing he's ready to play as a rookie, Derek Young really taking a step forward in the last year of his rookie deal, and Cody White having yet another outstanding camp in preseason. They release MVS today. There is some offset language, so if he's claimed by another team, they'll save a little bit of money, but otherwise there's about $3 million in dead cap that will be incurred there with that move. But then the trade of Michael Jarrell, last year's 6th-round pick out of Findlay, the Division II program out of Ohio, traded to the Atlanta Falcons for a 7th-round conditional pick. Usually those conditions have to do more with making a roster and being on a roster for a certain period of time when they're trades like this. It may be playtime dictated as well, but probably only means that he has to be on the roster for a certain period of time in order for them to recoup a 7th-round pick. I'm slightly surprised by that. I was encouraged by seeing Jarrell play left tackle in camp this year. That was something he had never done in college. But there's two things at work here. Number one, Josh Jones was even better than advertised, who they signed as a swing tackle. And I think they like him enough that, it's just a 1-year deal, but he could be a guy moving forward that they potentially re-sign after this year. But he was outstanding in place of Charles Cross in the preseason games at left tackle. He also can play guard, and that lends itself to the versatility that I think may dictate some of these other decisions on the offensive line, which we're still waiting to hear about. My first reaction to the Michael Jarrell news is, Mason Richmond has made this team. There's been some speculation that maybe undrafted rookie Amari Kite out of Central Florida, the Alabama transfer, might make it. And if he does, that would be a cool story and maybe the most interesting story of this whole process, because he's just a guy that I never talked about. I never really gave serious consideration to putting him on the 53-man roster. And yet, every time I'd watch him out at practice, every time I'd watch him in a preseason game, I thought, the kid's got some upside. He's longer than Jarrell. And remember, and I know there's been a lot of disappointment that, we're moving on already from a 6th-round pick from a year ago. Well, first of all, draft picks, it's very rare when any NFL team keeps all of their draft picks from their most recent draft. So the farther away you get from those drafts, the more common it is for day 3 guys to not make it, right? And that usually means somebody else is better and younger and has better upside. So I think there's some of that at play. Also, this is a whole new offensive coaching staff, and one that is very, very grounded in a long history of success in the league. coaching offensive lines in particular, John Benton and Rick Dennison and Justin Outen. And they weren't involved. They weren't here last year. They weren't involved in the selection process of those young offensive linemen last year. They were also drafting for a different scheme last year. I think Mason Richmond now has made this roster. 4-year starter at Iowa at left tackle, but has shown in camp he can play guard. And then late in camp was given center reps, and I was really encouraged by those. I thought he looked like a real natural fit there. Having offensive linemen with more versatility allows you to keep fewer of them. And we've talked for months now about how the Seahawks have to make some different allowances on this particular roster because they're doing a couple things they'd never done before. One is keeping a third quarterback, and one is rostering a fullback. And you have to borrow from that somewhere else. Now, the interesting thing when it comes to the wide receiver group will be, because I expect Derek Young to make the roster, does Cody White make the roster? Or do they try to get him through waivers because he's a 7-year vet? He's been through the waiver process many times successfully. And again, 2% of players get waived, or that are waived on cutdown day get claimed. Most of them make it through. The Seahawks might only keep 5 receivers on this roster when we see it officially announced, so that they can make up for this in other areas too. There's a couple of young guys on defense that are intriguing. Jared Ivey, if you want to keep him. I think J.R. Singleton made a real statement. But so far, the only 2 guys to be released officially that we know of are Jarrell, traded to the Falcons, and Patrick O'Connell, which was surprising only because of the developments of the last couple of weeks. My first 2 53-man projections, I only had Drake Thomas making it as an inside linebacker, and I know that made a lot of you nervous. My rationalization for that at the time was I thought O'Connell would get to the practice squad. He always does. And in sub packages that they run quite a bit, they had been playing Nick Emenwari and DeAnthony Bell, who I expect to make this roster, despite the fact that, as you can see here, I didn't have him on the roster a few days ago. My opinion has changed on that because of the O'Connell move. He gives you that versatility. He can play weak side linebacker. But I also think that there's a really good chance that O'Connell gets through the practice squad. Now, the one curveball potentially, and we've talked about it yesterday, is the Pete Carroll factor, right? Like, Pete Carroll certainly has familiarity with Patrick O'Connell, and I was just reading last night how Raiders fans think there's a lot of work to be done in that back half of that defense, including the inside linebacker group. O'Connell could get claimed by the Raiders. We'll find out probably by this time tomorrow. All right, and as I will do as we work through this, I will continue going back to both the Seahawks official website and also Twitter. Nothing official yet. Yeah, the Seahawks are just notoriously late in releasing their roster. Okay. So let me go over this as well. I'm going to share this screen. Also, let me add this in here. This will be a little bit more of a conversational, kind of a slower, more casual pace because we're waiting for information. But I did just want to show you this in case you're not aware yet. I do have a Substack now. If you want to check that out, it is free currently and will remain free until week 2 of the regular season. So I've got my live draft cut tracker here, keeping up with the moves so far. No other real shocks. As recently as my second 53-man roster projection, I had Tyreek Smith making it. I thought he showed some real progression this year as a run defender in addition to the juice that he has as a pass rusher off the edge, and I think that was pretty evident in the preseason games. But again, he's a guy that has a history of getting through waivers a couple of times. Probably will again. I would expect him to be back on the practice squad. Ricky White just never looked like he had a shot to make this roster because of the other young talent in that wide receiver room. But a great example, as I wrote here, of him, he did nothing wrong. He looked the part. He contributed, had a couple catches in that Packer game. We know he's a special teams ace. I expect him to land back on the practice squad. And I think he's a good example of a guy that that, he could be on this roster next year or the year after. You allow him to develop, keep a couple of these young guys around to develop with Jalen Milroe. Tyrone Broden Jr. is another guy that I would expect to be waived and moved to the practice squad when he clears waivers for that same reason. Have those guys all kind of growing and developing together. I really hope they keep Ricky White in the program. Isis Waxter, I know he was kind of a favorite among the undrafted group, among many fans. He just, as I wrote here, big, tall corners that run 4.6s. You don't find a lot of them succeeding in the NFL. Always thought from the moment he was signed that maybe there's a safety conversion a la Kobe Bryant in his future. He flashed early in camp and then just kind of faded. It seemed like his camp went along. But he's a guy that would be fun to kind of have in the practice squad and continue to develop as well. I think he showed enough to be worthy of that. And then, we did get clarification today. Zach Triner, the long snapper who was brought in a couple weeks ago when Chris Stoll was banged up, was released. That would indicate that Stoll's going to be ready for week 1 against the 49ers. Demarion Williams had history with Mike McDonald in Baltimore, made some plays against the Packers, smaller corner. He would flash in practice, and he's a good, solid vet. He could be a guy to bring back on the practice squad just in case they want some more experienced depth. And then Jarek Reed, last year's 7th round, or 2 years ago, 7th round draft pick. Again, just never flashed enough in camp or ever really threatened any of the guys ahead of him on the depth chart. Pretty much ran with the 3s entire camp. We know he's a good special teams player. Some guys just don't develop. They just don't become what you want them to become. He's been through a coaching change. He's been through an ACL. Maybe that sapped him of some of that juice that he had coming out of his rookie year. Had a little bit of momentum, I thought, coming out of that. Seth Coleman, his pressure rate was great in the preseason, but when I watched him in camp on a day-to-day basis, I didn't see an NFL player. And then Damian Martinez is probably my most disappointing cut, not because I thought he deserved to make the roster. He did not. But really from the moment I saw him in practice and then in the preseason games particularly, he just didn't look like the player that we saw at Oregon State and Miami. 60% of his yards came after contact last year. We kind of called him beast mode light, like real violent runner. Didn't see that. Didn't see it this year. Didn't look as decisive, instinctive, and physical. I wouldn't even be surprised if they don't bring him back to the practice squad. I think Jacardier Wright was a guy that would be a much higher priority. Sometimes they carry 2 on the practice squad. We'll see if that's an option. Tyus is another guy that'll be released, I'm sure. And, maybe he's a practice squad option as well. But Martinez really bummed me out. I was hoping for more. He was really one of my draft crushes heading into the draft, certainly. All right, before I get to your questions and takes, and obviously if we're chatting and one of you sees that the official roster has been released or that there's some other big news, there's nothing on the Seahawks website as of this point, then give me a shout out and then we can hop over to it. I can share that screen and we can go. But check out the Substack. As I said, it'll be free until week 2, and then I have vowed to always keep it at the lowest possible subscription price that Substack allows. Let's see what you guys got. Let's turn on your comments here. Hey, there's Bryce with the Hawk's Eye. First again. I mean, you've been on a roll. Look at that with the icon. How do you do that? How did you do that? Oh, did you put it on your if you put it on your YouTube profile? It's kind of cool. I like the new logo, man. That's good. Good stuff. Let's see. Martin Todd Smith, excited for this team and the season. Solaria says, was surprised about O'Connell. I was, because of this. Like I said, all the way through this process, I only had Drake Thomas on my first 2 projections as a backup inside linebacker for the reasons I mentioned. But when Tyrese Knight got hurt, what I saw in practice in training camp was Patrick O'Connell playing weak side linebacker next to Ernest Jones, which surprised me at the moment. I thought Drake Thomas would be first up. And so that perked my ears up. And then the way Mike McDonald talked about him, and then the way he played, I thought especially in that Packer game, like he and Thomas together were a good duo. And he's a special teams stud. And so then that's when I thought, okay, if there's any chance that Knight's not going to be 100%, then maybe they'll keep that fourth guy. There's some speculation, and Brady Henderson even tweeted before the O'Connell release became known to us that maybe the Seahawks would be looking at inside linebacker depth help. So there could be another move coming. There could be a guy that they claim. There's no real names that stood out to me among other teams' cuts, but I was talking to Bryce about this earlier today. A lot of back end of the roster inside linebackers in this league, unless there's someone I studied in the draft process in recent years, they're going to be guys that none of us know. The Seahawks could claim an inside linebacker that will be a name that we all look at each other and go, let's Google it, because I don't know. Chad Muma, I know, has gotten a lot of attention from you guys since it was reported he was being cut by Jacksonville. To me, he's a good athlete, but he's a high cut guy. I don't know if he really kind of epitomizes like a Mike McDonald type linebacker. Vi Jones was a guy just 2 years ago in Seattle that we really liked, but now that's 2 years removed and it's a different coaching staff. Outside of that, we don't know, right? Also, and I mentioned this on Twitter earlier today, this could be an indication that Josh Ross is close to returning. He's a guy that has history with Mike McDonald playing linebacker, but also is a special teams ace, and he's just been banged up all of camp and has missed it. If they think he's about to come back, that could be part of this equation as well. But also, Nick Emenwari's been playing weak side linebacker in sub packages, and so has D'Anthony Bell, who I expect to make this roster. And that could be part of this too. Anytime they go to nickel or dime, they might only have Ernest Jones on the field when it comes to inside linebackers, and that other guy could be a hybrid, more of a coverage guy like an Emenwari or a Bell. And so that could be part of this too. But they also have some other young guys that they might want to protect, and this might speak to some of the younger offensive linemen that they really want to keep around for development purposes and are afraid to expose to waivers. Let me go back to this again and get my final roster projection back up here for you, just so we can compare it against any other moves that come in. Scott says the Jarrell trade was a curveball, but so far no real surprises. I tweeted this out, but I'm going to say it again here. I guess I kind of used to be like this too. Like, we fall in love with prospects and we fall in love with players, right? And their potential. We decide that we have guys that we like better than others. And I was as positive as anyone about Michael Jarrell when I saw him playing left tackle in camp this year. Really good athletic profile for a guy that big. But 6th-round draft picks, traditionally the hit rate on those extremely low. Division II players extremely low as well. So it was always going to be an uphill battle for him. He's not a mauler. He's not a real physical dude. He looked like it on his tape playing against Division II guys. He looked like a killer. Not so much when you watch him in practice or preseason games. And I just think there's some other guys that they like. I would encourage all of you to not ever lose 1 second of sleep over a 6th or 7th round draft pick from a year or two ago not making the roster and considering that a wasted pick or giving up on a player too soon. Life is far too short to stress about things that ultimately are pretty damn meaningless when you get down to it. MVS probably will have some interest around the league. We did hear there's been some chatter the last couple of days around the league, teams looking for veteran players. We know the Minnesota Vikings were. We're even considering reuniting with Adam Thielen and potentially talking trade with Carolina for him. So he would be an option, I think, in Minnesota. It's a similar enough scheme that he could fit right in there. Wouldn't be surprised if the San Francisco 49ers pick him up, especially in lieu of the fact that they play us week 1. That would make a whole lot of sense to me. Because he's a vested veteran, he doesn't have to get through waivers. And so he can decide right now, and this is another part of this as well. it's possible that he has already told the Seahawks, hey, I'm not gonna accept any other offers, and I'll just be a veteran on your practice squad. I want to be part of this. That could be part of this. Now, reportedly, they did try to trade him over the last couple of days, but found no takers. And we're already eating $3 million in dead cap space, so maybe there's a spot for him on the practice squad. Again, he is not subject to the waiver wire, and so he is in control. He is a free agent now and in complete control of where he signs or doesn't sign moving forward. So he could very well still end up on the team. No update yet on Connor O'Toole. I don't expect him to make the 53, but he did show me enough that I really would like to keep him around on the practice squad. Now this says Ivy and Richmond cut. Is that based on your projection, or do we have some information now? Have those been... Yeah, the 49ers just released Robbie Chosen, Russell Gage, Isaiah Hodgkins, and Malik Turner, former Seahawk. All guys that have played in this league. They're hurting at wide receiver. I could really see them having some interest in MVS. Let's see who else the 49ers. Well, I'm still looking for... Yeah, I don't see anything about Ivy or Richmond being cut. I would be, at this point, I would expect both of those players to make the roster. Especially Richmond, because he can play all 5 positions all up and down that line, which I think is pretty huge. Yeah, let's get this back up here. Jamie Sheriff waived. Where are you guys seeing this? Okay, so this is per Brady Henderson, but I don't know what that means. So let me check Brady's account. By the way, let me just confirm this. Yeah. Brady's going to join me on the show for the first time, make his Seahawks Forever debut on Thursday. So by that time, not only will we know the 53 man, but we should know the practice squad too. And really excited to dig into that with Brady. Okay, wave Jamie Sheriff. I fully expected that to happen. He's kind of Jamie Sheriff to me is the ultimate game day elevation type player. He's a practice squad guy that might get elevated from time to time. I know he flashes. He just doesn't look like a full-time 53-man NFL player to me. Okay. Just catching up with some of Brady's stuff because he's most in the know. He has also confirmed he's waiting, just like the rest of us are, for official word on the whole roster. But he can confirm that Nehemiah Pritchett is on the roster. I didn't expect that to not happen. Pritchett had a very, very good camp and preseason. I think the Seahawks really like his upside moving forward in a cornerback room that doesn't have a lot of certainty beyond 2025. I think Pritchett's future starter for this team. Nothing else beyond that. Haven't seen anything about Ivy or Richmond from which Hawks for Life had said. Hey, greetings from Spain. Love that. That's cool. Love that. Yeah, Hank, Ricky Pearsall's pretty good, but he's all they got right now. Like, Juwan Jennings is hurt. Brandon Ayuk's not going to be back for a while. Like, they are so banged up at receiver, and there's really no... They haven't worked out the Jennings contract thing either. Hawks for Life asks, any players that were cut you like the Hawks to look at? Brennan Jackson. I talked about this last night. I cannot believe the Rams moved on from him. If they had done so a few hours earlier, he could have passed through waivers before the cuts today, and we could have known his standing. Seahawks 18th in waiver selection. He's a guy that was just... obviously, I know his game well, being a Coug fan. He was a guy that was devoted to the program, came back an extra year when he didn't have to. High motor, high character, juice as a pass rusher, physical player, good enough as a run defender. I like his upside better than Connor O'Toole. I would like his upside better than Jamie Sheriff. I think he's a guy that can be on, yet again, just like I said about the cornerback group, there's a lot of uncertainty about that edge group moving into 2026 and beyond. I would like Brennan Jackson's odds of being part of a rotation and being a guy that gets snaps moving forward. he's a guy that fingers crossed. I'd love to see him get through waivers or at least get to 18 where the Seahawks could take him. This is, and it's, I'm actually, the reason I pause there is having a Twitter discussion at the moment with one of my followers over there. And if any of you saw my, my pet peeve tweet from about an hour ago, the idea that other teams' cast-offs are better and can play a significant role on our team is usually misguided. Usually it's attached to your thoughts on a player during the draft season. I still hold on to those things, right? Maybe Brennan Jackson, I haven't dug into his tape from this preseason. I haven't watched all 22. Maybe he's getting beat. Maybe he's missing assignment. Maybe he's not doing the right things. He's not where he's supposed to be. Maybe he's getting beat by more physical linemen. I don't know. I just know that based on my draft evaluation, that's how much I liked him. And so maybe that's where some of this comes from with you guys as well. But like in particular, the inside linebackers, right? Like we still don't have confirmation of this, but Rams fans are freaking out that it appears that they might be releasing Pooh Paul, the rookie 5th round pick, I think, or 6th round pick out of Ole Miss. He's an undersized weak side linebacker. They had a guy out of Buffalo, Sean Dolac, who's a tremendous athlete who just had a better preseason and won a job. And so that made Paul expendable. Usually the guys in the building that the coaches like and that are familiar with the scheme and the playbook and everything else they're almost always going to be better than a player that another team deemed expendable. Like, if you think Pooh Paul is going to be better than Patrick O'Connell and Drake Thomas, then I would challenge that. And I would say that you probably haven't watched Drake Thomas and Patrick O'Connell play a whole lot. And you're basing that off of previous perception, previous bias, other scouting reports, your draft evaluation on a player, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's all intriguing, and you can find gems in other teams' cuts. Not saying you can't. I'm just saying that it's tougher. It's tougher to find that and bring a guy in and integrate him right away on your 53 and have him ready to go than someone that's already been in your program. But that's really the only one so far that has stood out to me. Some of the other guys, there's reasons for it, right? Like when the Eagles released Keandre Colburn, I went back to my draft evaluation. I thought that's a nose tackle that would look good in this program. But then you hear about the reasons that he was cut and that maybe the work ethic suffers and that the conditioning suffers. So the Raiders claim him. They cut him again. There's probably a reason for that, right? So I'm just going to accept that as he's not the player I thought he was going to be. There's some other guys like that out there, but nobody that I've seen yet that really just kind of screams, oh man, I want him, except for Brennan Jackson. It is kind of cool, isn't it, to not care about other teams releasing young quarterbacks that might have some development left in them? Like, that would be one of the first things I would always look for this time of year. But not this year. Not at all. Not even a concern. This is a good example of a guy. Kevin Dilly says, do you think Mike McDonald can unlock Isaiah Foskey, the former Notre Dame edge who the Saints cut today? I remember my thing that I couldn't get past in the draft with Foskey was just lack of production. Like, the athletic profile was there. He looked the part. He looked like a guy you want getting off the bus first, right? That cliche. But the production just wasn't there. Like, he just didn't beat guys on the edge enough for me. Maybe, but again, I think he's a great example of, is he better than Tyreek Smith? Is his upside better than Connor O'Toole? I can't answer that. I don't know, but they would. And so, that's what their decision process is going to be based on. It's not just going to be, hey, we liked him in the draft, let's grab him. It's going to be, well, where's he going to fit, and what's the opportunity cost? And do we like him enough more than the guy that's already been in the program, right? What do we got here? We got someone saying, breaking news, he made it. Jared Ivey apparently made the Seahawks initial 53-man roster, according to Greg Bell 2 minutes ago. He's on the practice field about to warm up. Now, that's where we're going to get some of this stuff. The Seahawks are practicing today at 3:45, but some guys are out there early, including Jared Ivey and Connor O'Toole. So Connor O'Toole is currently on the field warming up next to Jared Ivey. That would be the first big surprise. And it's the kind of surprise I like. I saw some really cool stuff from O'Toole. Didn't think he was going to make the roster. But if the coaches like him enough that they want to protect him, I think that's pretty cool. Because, again, you start looking ahead a few years in that edge group, right? We don't know what Boye Mafe is going to be, and if he has a huge year, he's going to cost a lot of money. We don't know how much DeMarcus Lawrence has left in the tank. I think he's going to be really good this year, but it's one of those 3-year deals you can get out of after a year. Maybe it's just a 2-year deal, right? Derek Hall will be entering the last year of his deal in 2026. Uchenna Nwosu with the injury history, and he's expensive, right? There's some edge questions there. So if you're able to add a couple guys like O'Toole and Ivey, O'Toole being on the roster would tell me that they're out of the Brennan Jackson market. I think those two would kind of be redundant. And again, might fit right into that category I was just talking about with guys in your own program are always going to carry more value. That is super, super interesting that O'Toole is out there with Ivey. I like it. I mean, I've had Ivey, I think on the last 253-man, it became pretty evident early in camp that this guy needed to be kept on the roster. And I'll take it a step further. I think he's going to get snaps. I think he's going to be part of the rotation, especially if Mike Morris gets placed on injured reserve. And we're still waiting to hear on a couple of those moves as well, too. See, this is that mindset that I don't understand. Zach says, we've had O'Connell for years, so yes, Paul would be more appealing. Only if he's better. Only if he's better, and how do you know he's better? You don't. The coaches do. And so we'll see. I mean, maybe Pooh Paul's a guy they had a good draft grade on, and they'll bring him in, right? Outward Blocker asks, this is a little bit of a non-cut question. Out of all of our starters, who do you think will step up and have that surprise Pro Bowl caliber season? I'll say DeMarcus Lawrence. I think some people outside the Seattle market certainly have written him off. I think he's capable of having a 10-sack year and making the Pro Bowl as a veteran. Outside of that, I don't know that it would be a surprise, but I think there's a really good chance that Gray Zabel is a Pro Bowler as a rookie. Kurt asks, it doesn't seem like there are a lot of holes in the roster. Do you think the Seahawks trade for anyone? I don't. I don't. Because I think any position that you might think they need to trade for, I think they believe in a young guy or two at that position. Like, there's probably still a whole bunch of fans out there that would like to see us trade for a veteran offensive lineman that could back up multiple positions, right? Just to have a little veteran presence in the event that maybe they don't sign a Dalton Reisner or somebody like that. But again, I think this... You hear Mike McDonald talk all the time about the decisions we make as an organization aren't just about the team today, but it's our future also. They're going to keep as many young players with an eye on development as they can, in addition to, just trying to have the best roster you can today so you can win today. Yeah, the O'Toole thing is super, super interesting. Yeah, Mookie chiming in too. Yeah, I'm watching the video of him working out right now. And so now we should get information pretty quickly from some of the reporters on hand. Although they're only allowed to watch the beginning of practice and they have to go inside. But I thought practice wasn't scheduled to start today till 3:45. Let me check my schedule here. my official schedule. So yeah, the Wednesday the 27th. No, Tuesday the 26th, 3:20. So these guys are out early, which, you know, if you just found out that you made an NFL roster as an undrafted free agent, hell yeah, you're going to be on the field early. You're going to be out there being an NFL player, enjoying every moment of it, right? That's really cool. Shout out to Bryce Coots, because he was an O'Toole guy from the very beginning. Even in the Raiders game, talked about how much he flashed. Let's see. Okay, here we go again with this. Super Zeke the Freak, JS better wake up and go get us a Z receiver. Horton's our only Z and our only real X, by the way. He has injury issues. Sean McVay's LA Rams. Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. Bill Walsh's 49ers, where this scheme was invented. None of those teams had legit, true, like, I know what you're getting at. Got to have that guy that could take the top off, that true outside deep threat. None of them have. It's not necessary in this scheme. And yes, Horton can absolutely be that guy. Derek Young can be that guy. I think it's a completely overrated point. And if the team felt like they needed that guy, they would have gone out and gotten him. And they did. His name's Torrey Horton. It's condensed splits. It's a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. It's widening the field by condensing the splits. That just doesn't, it's not a huge priority in this scheme. Yep. There's Greg Bell. I mean, there's Bryce saying, yeah, my guy, Connor O'Toole. Okay, now here's a really good example, too, of like, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper. So Sonny says, praying we get Luke Kandra on the practice squad at least. I loved Kandra in the draft process, thought he was a great scheme fit out of Cincinnati for a wide zone scheme, but there's a reason he ended up going so late in the draft. And now I can't remember what they were there, but there was some sort of chronic injury issue or some off-field thing. There was something that hurt in his evaluation. But he was a guy that I thought was a real good scheme fit in the draft process. But the Seahawks really like Bryce Cable do. Whether he makes this 53-man or not, they love his athletic upside. And despite the fact that, and I've reported that he really struggled at times in camp, he kind of slowly worked his way up. And by the end of training camp, he was running on the second team offensive line at left guard ahead of Satawa Lamea. And so I think the Seahawks would just, you know, if he's a guy that gets through waivers, nobody claims him, maybe he's a practice squad candidate, I'd be down for that, but I don't think they're going to claim him. So I like your practice squad idea. I do think he was a scheme fit. Yeah, Hankins, I think he's gonna I said this last night, we may have seen the last of Jonathan Hankins. I mean, 6 weeks ago, Mike McDonald stood in front of us and said, yeah, it's not a big deal. We're just taking care of him. He's an older player. He'll be here soon. 6 weeks later, they sound a lot less certain about what's going on with his back injury. I think there's as good of a, how did I word it last night? There's as good of a chance that he never plays football again in the league as there is that we see him play significant snaps for the Seahawks this year. Yeah, here you go. That's a good answer to that question earlier, too. Robbie Utes could very well be the Pro Bowl fullback as a rookie. That'd be pretty cool. Kevin says, Jared Ivey, I can see taking that number one edge spot in the future. I don't know that the Seahawks really view him as an edge. I mean, he can play there, but he's also an inside guy, and he can move up and down that line. Mike McDonald's exact words, when asked to describe him a couple weeks ago after practice, said he's a big end. He's one of those big ends that we like. And he can even reduce down inside. I think they even have him listed. No, they have him listed as a linebacker, which is weird because they have DeMarcus Lawrence listed as a defensive end. So, yeah, sometimes those roster listings are pretty interesting. Yeah, Mookie says he has practice listed at 125 today. Maybe they changed it. I'm still working off of the original PDF they gave me weeks ago, but must be because I had never seen guys be out an hour before practice. Bryce Coots, never heard of him. He's the host of this new Seahawks podcast called The Hawk's Eye. You should all get over there and subscribe to that channel. Outward Blocker says, Dan, nice to see 334 peeps in chat. I remember when it was me and like 4 others. Well deserved. Thank you. And thank all of you. And it's 1,000 now. Let's see. Sorry for the silence. Just kind of working through and refresh. What's that old GIF where the cat is just like pounding away at the keyboard? Yeah, still not seeing. I mean, you would hope that by the time they hit the practice field, they would have the official list out, but you know, it's not how the Seahawks like to do things. To me, the real intrigue now is what is that? And you can tell just by looking at my projection. What does that offensive line group look like? I think right now, as we sit here today, I think Haynes goes to injured reserve. And honestly, he could be a guy that they just kind of redshirt, still try to develop in the background. And they go with Cable, Dew, and Richmond. And then we'll find out what happens with Dalton Reisner. You know, it was reported he was going to visit with Seattle. That hasn't happened yet, according to Greg Bell. Whether it does or not, he might at this point just be waiting to see how all of this shakes out and see if he gets a call from a team that might have a better, clearer path to him being a starter, because he wouldn't be in Seattle. He would be brought in here as veteran depth at both guard spots, which is a move I would love to see. Like, he's not a perfect player. There's a reason he's always available in free agency at the end of the offseason. But one of them is he's never really graded out all that great as a run blocker. He's kind of in that league average, sort of 58 to 59 PFF range. But he's a very, very good pass blocker. I think he was 13th in the league for qualifying guards last year. I would feel a whole lot better if something were to happen to Zabel or Bradford having him on the roster than I would Cable, Dew, or Richmond. I like those guys. Upside, certainly, I think Richmond would be the first in the pecking order. I think he's the closest to being ready to play. But I'd feel a whole lot better if it was Reisner or somebody else. You know, we could look at guys that are released. In fact, let me look at this, because Bryce did text me a little bit earlier, and let me just see if this particular name was indeed released by the New Orleans Saints. Yeah. So this is an interesting one, and maybe an example of kind of what you're talking about. And again, I haven't watched his preseason tape. Don't know if he's got an injury he's dealing with or anything. I just know that I liked Shane Lemieux coming out of Oregon a couple of years ago in the draft. He's a zone scheme fit. He can play center and guard, and he played for Kubiak and John Benton in New Orleans last year. And so I could look at it. I could see a guy like Lemieux, not as a claim necessarily, but it wouldn't shock me if he's healthy. But I could see him being a guy, because he has familiarity with Kubiak and Benton, and he's a fit in this scheme. A guy like that would make some sense, especially if you don't think you have any shot at Reisner, or you just don't think he's a fit, to bring in a guy that has a little bit more experience and has started some games in this league. Let's see what that number looks like. Actually, here we go. It was two drafts ago, right? God, time flies. 2020 draft, 5th round in the 2020 draft. And he has started 16 games in his career. So he's a 5-year vet, spent the first 4 with the New York Giants. And then he started 4 games, played in 7 for the Saints last year, again, under Kubiak and Benton. So maybe that's an option. He's not a guy that you want starting every week, but if you just want some good, solid veteran depth, perhaps. Yeah, this is another good example of that. Josh Cole Strange, the guy was he was a surprising first-round pick. Nobody had him projected to go in the first round until the Patriots took him a couple of years ago. But he's a guy that just never maybe he's a case of solid player, but never played up to what was expected of him as a first round pick. And again, some of these are tough because it's not like there's. Well, let's see. Let's do the math. I've done this before, but top of my head, I can't remember. So each team essentially cuts 37 players today. So there's 1,200 players that are becoming available today around the league. I'm not going to be intimately familiar with all 1,200 of those players and instantly be able to make an evaluation of whether I think they'd be better on this roster than anyone else at their disposal, unless there's someone that I evaluated in recent drafts. Let's just go to Seahawks.com again and refresh. Nothing. And let's see if anyone else is reporting anything from Seahawks practice. God, yeah. Matt Barrows just tweeted, the 49ers have 2 healthy receivers on their 53-man roster, Ricky Pearsall and Sky Moore, with Juwan Jennings possibly joining the list. And yet they released all those veterans. Like, they're going to be scouring. I mean, MVS is going to be a 49er, right? Unless he's already told the Seahawks that he'll come back. Yeah, Brady just tweeted 4 minutes ago, waiting for the Seahawks to announce their roster moves, but here's our news story and the biggest subtraction of the day. MVS. Man. This is thrilling podcasting, isn't it? Glass Activist says, I like Cole Strange as a pickup. Abdimus Prime. Okay, I think I finally figured that out. Sorry. Says we need to pick up a guard tomorrow and inside linebacker, both needing. Why? Why? Like, they have guys that they like, and while they might add someone from the outside at either of those positions, I have issue with the word need. If there's a player they believe makes them better, yes. But this is not how good staffs, fill out their rosters. Getting through that whole process and then realizing, shit, it's cut down day. I need a guard. Now let's go get one. That's bad roster management. If they felt that way, I think they would have been a little more proactive in going out and getting a guy, because there were guards traded. Yep, still nothing new. What do you guys want to talk about while we're waiting? How about around the division? How about elsewhere? Let's go over to the... let's do this, and we'll screen share this. Let's take this away. And we'll go to the official NFL.com tracker, because that can maybe spark some ideas, guys, that are intriguing to us. Guys, hear those birds out there? They are aggressive today. All right, so let's just kind of scroll through this and have some fun. A couple of former Seahawks here released by the Bills. Cornerback Zy Alexander. Obviously, they didn't like him enough to keep him around any longer than they did. Nelson Caesar was an undrafted free agent last year. Don't really see anyone there that stands out. The Patriots, I mean, Cole Strange would be interesting. Someone to kick the tires on, although as a guy who was a recent first-round pick and had started games in this league, there's probably a better chance that somebody claims him. Layden Robinson was a guard that I liked coming out of, was it Arkansas or Texas A&M? I think it was Texas A&M. But he's more of a gap power guy, I think. I don't think he's a real scheme fit. I am keeping my eye out for guys from around the league that might be like a sneaky good nose tackle candidate, although I really like what we saw from Bohanna and Peely this camp. We'll see if they both make the roster. Jets. Nobody I really see there that stands out. I would be interested to see the Ravens cuts, and if any guys get released there that McDonald likes. I think when you look at the Saints cuts, you always look for where there's familiarity, right? Let's see. I don't really see anyone from the Bengals. The Browns. Man, they've had such a weird offseason. Yeah, I don't really see anyone that stands out to be from their list. I liked Darius Rush, corner in the Senior Bowl a couple years ago. Steelers released Robert Woods. Might be the end of the road for him. They released a lot of linebackers. You never know on these NFL.com listings, though, if they're inside linebackers or outside linebackers. There's Cam Alexander, former Seahawk legend. Trent Brown released by the Texans, his career. He'll probably call it a day. Again, Chad Muma, a lot of you liked, a really athletic prospect out of Wyoming. I just don't think he really fits kind of the physical type that the Seahawks tend to like at that position. I was really pulling for Xavier Restrepo to make the Titans. He's such a fun player. Look at this. According to the NFL website, the Tennessee Titans hate tight end Josh Wiley so much they cut him twice. See that right there? Let's get back over here and see if I've missed anything new from you guys. James, appreciate the starred comment. Thank you for that. 5 months as a member. Love that. Yeah, players cut that we had 30 visits with. I do keep an eye on that. Malachi Corley is a guy that was released by the Jets. He's not a fit, but that's one of those things I always keep in mind. Like, oh, he had a visit. Kevin Dilley's got a guy that he likes. Beanie Bishop just released from the Steelers, 4 interceptions, 2 tackles for loss, and a fumble recovery as a rookie last year. Iron Toss says, why didn't they get a trade for MVS? They tried, but it takes 2 to tango. You have to have a team willing to give you something for him and be willing to take on his guaranteed money. They obviously couldn't find someone because they would have taken anything for him. Okay. Let's keep going on this list. Well, let's do this. I don't want to get away from this. Let's just keep. It's so weird that the Raiders traded for Kenny Pickett. I don't know what anyone sees in him. Never have. Never got it. Also remember that with the new rules, the Seahawks can place 2 players on injured reserve with a designation of return at the cutdown. It used to be you had to put them on the 53 and then wait till guys got through waivers before you could do that. And if you put them on at the cutdown, they were out for the year. That's not the case anymore. So I kind of think one of those spots is going to go to Christian Haynes. I think another one might go to Mike Morris. I believe it was Morris yesterday that there was kind of the weird moment in McDonald's press conference that I reacted to last night where he was asked about him and then he turned, and I think it's a head injury that he sustained in the joint practice. So you wouldn't expect that to keep him out week 1, but he turned to Dave Pearson and he says, Have we said anything official about him yet? No? Okay. He's in the protocol. It's day to day. That was deja vu because there was a moment exactly like that last year. I think in reference to George Fant. I was trying to remember who that was about. And it went down the exact same way. What's the latest status of George? Have we done anything? No? Okay, he's day to day. And then the next day they put him on injured reserve. So I think there's a good chance, and especially seeing O'Toole and Ivy both out there, that Mike Morris gets placed on injured reserve, which then my next question is, and the guy that I'm really watching for is, does J.R. Singleton make this roster? I wanted to put him on my 53 so badly. He just got better every day, And I think he's got a lot of upside, and I'd love to see him protected on this roster because I think he showed he's an NFL player. Yeah, this Desmond Watson thing, I know a bunch of people were on that train when he wasn't drafted, 450 pounds. Let's get a run stuffer in there. But he literally never got on the practice field with the Bucs because they signed him as an undrafted free agent, but they said, you got to get down to a certain weight. You have to get healthier, and he never did, so they released him. Seahawks aren't going to touch a guy like that. What he needs to do is go lose it on his own now. Go lose 50 pounds on his own, and then, try to catch on again with the team at that point. Oh, it drives me crazy how they do this. They're not the only one. There's quite a few teams out there that have yet to release their entire list yet. So let's just kind of keep working through this. Go through the AFC West. Clay Webb was a guard that I really liked out of Jacksonville State in the draft process, but he had, see the guy with the bullying accusations? He had some off-field stuff that probably makes him not a Seahawk. Yeah, see, a lot of these teams have not released their full list yet. Michael Barrett, the Seahawks had him in for a look last year. He played for McDonald at Michigan, but they released him a week after they traded for him, so I don't know that they'll go down that road again. Brendan Rice, Jerry Rice's kid, didn't make it with the Chargers. Cowboys. Was kind of wondering if they might make a move with Mazi Smith. There was a report in ESPN last. Well, it wasn't a report. It was a story on like 10 trades I'd like to see, kind of a thing. And they had the Seahawks trading for Mazi Smith, but it sounds like they're going to roll with him. Go to the Giants. Tommy DeVito gets cut. They decide to stick with Russell and Winston. Eagles are always a fun list to peruse because they just have an eye for talent, and it's very, very. Kyle McCord didn't make that team. That's fascinating to me. I think he's an NFL player. The fact though that they traded for Sam Howell instead of keeping Kyle McCord, he must have had a rough preseason. I wouldn't be surprised to see a team like the Rams pick him up on their practice squad and have McVay take a shot at developing him. I think he fits that scheme, and they've got to be thinking about quarterback down the line there. That one is surprising to me. Kenyon Green is a former first-round pick as a guard, but he's just been bad. That's two teams now that have given up on him. I don't really see anyone there that stands out. Maxon Hook was a safety / corner that I really liked at the Senior Bowl this year. Maybe he's a guy that you bring in on the practice squad if he's someone that they liked in their draft process. NFC North, let's check out the Bears. Zach Pickens was a guy, big, tall, long interior defensive lineman I liked in the draft a couple years ago. Hey, our old friend Trey Flowers, back on the market again. Hendon Hooker, who KJ Wright once said should be the 5th pick in the draft, wanted the Seahawks to take him a couple of years ago instead of Devin Witherspoon, gets released by the Lions. Also, a cautionary tale, because I had many fans tell me a couple of years ago that Hendon Hooker was a starter in this league and a guy that the Seahawks should have drafted. Remember, he was coming off that ACL, but that Tennessee system, man, I feel the same way about Joe Milton. It makes you look good, but doesn't translate. Dan Skipper is a guy that's gotten a lot of buzz from some of y'all. When he was reported yesterday he was going to be released by the Lions, I rejected it out of hand. But with them moving on from Michael Jarrell, maybe they like a guy like Dan Skipper. Our old friend Miles Adams got released by the Lions. That's kind of a bummer. I always liked Miles. I always thought, there's certain guys that are like just not quite good enough, but they look like NFL players. Like they're that 54th guy, right? Like those 4A guys in baseball that always destroy AAA and just can't quite get any footing in the bigs. Packers going with just 2 quarterbacks to start the season. They released both Clifford and Elgersma after one of the most interesting handlings of quarterbacks I've ever seen in a preseason game. They were essentially rotating in that second half. That was interesting. Let's check out the Vikings now. Hey, Nick Vanette, former Seahawk. Always liked Nick. Yeah, just nobody really jumps out as being obvious. Which, there's usually a reason that these that players get released. They didn't play well enough. Panthers. Let's see what they did over there. Hunter Renfrow. God, has a guy... and I know he had some personal stuff that kind of forced him or caused him to choose to step away from the game, but then come back. Such a good route runner. Caught 100 balls a couple years ago and can't make it in the league. That's crazy. Yeah, there's Luke Kandra, as you mentioned earlier. Jarrett Kingston is a guy coming out of USC that I liked. Can play. I think he can play guard and some tackle. Hey, there's our old friend John Radigan. Could he be back? I mean, he's a special teams stud. The Saints released Jake Hayner. They announced today they're going with Spencer Rattler over Tyler Shuck. It's interesting. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the former first-round pick. But let's check this Saints list because they have announced all of their... Let's see if there's any more. Nope. Shane Lemieux, really the only guy on that offensive line. They've released a couple other guards, but guys I'm just not familiar with. Don't know if they were on the roster last year for them or not, or if they had any exposure to Kubiak or Benton. Let's see what the Cardinals did. They released Clayton Tune. It's interesting. I always thought he was better than people gave him credit for. Former Seahawk legend McClendon Curtis is available. He can play tackle and guard. Just saying. Vi Jones, also released, former inside linebacker, Seahawk. The Rams, they did officially release Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss. That is interesting. He would be a guy, I think he probably gets claimed, but if he doesn't, he'd be fun to look at. The Niners look like they have released their entire official list now as well. Man, they had a lot of quarterbacks in camp. It's crazy to me they released all those veteran receivers when they're so hard up for receivers. They must just be planning on... it's such a bummer. Andre Dillard just couldn't make it in this league. I think it was injuries, first of all. He was such an elite pass protector coming out of WSU. Nobody I really see there. And then there's the Seahawks with only... NFL.com is only listing 3 official cuts from them. Here's Jabril Slater. See, this is, again, I want to educate you guys. I want to change your mindset. Jabril Slater, Cole Strange, got to be better than our backups. No, he doesn't. If he was better than our backups, then maybe they would have kept him. And you're not in meetings every day. You're not in practice every day. They drafted these guys. They did all the work, the interviews, the draft prep on them. They've seen every rep that they've played live, and then they evaluate it again on tape. I don't know if Cole Strange is a better player than Bryce Cable or Mason Richmond, and neither do you. Sorry, I try to educate you guys. I do. Super Zeke the Freak says Hendon Hooker was electric in college. He was. With that weird, wide split offense that spreads teams out and beats them deep and schemes guys open. They make it super, super easy for quarterbacks there. But it does not translate to the skills that you need to play in an NFL offense. Free Truth says, Dan, does this list refresh automatically? It doesn't. I think I have to hit the little boop like that. And they're still just listing 3 for the Seahawks. Here, let me do this so that I can have it locked and loaded. so I can continue to go back to it, is I'm just going to screenshot my final projection here so I can put this up as well too. There it is. Nope, that's not it. There we go. So again, this just a reminder, this was my final 53 projection. So they traded Jarrell. Obviously, he's not going to be there. Patrick O'Connell gets released. I did have Jared Ivey making it, but you can see in my outside linebacker group, I did not have Connor O'Toole making it. But again, if Mike Morris is going to go to injured reserve, potentially, that would make sense there. I also didn't have DeAnthony Bell here. But I think with O'Connor, I think that's another one. I think he makes this because he can play weak side linebacker and safety. They like him in both roles. And he just makes plays too. Yeah, John, we've talked about Poo-Paul a little bit. He wasn't a guy I studied real hard in the draft outside of just what I saw in Mobile. He didn't really flash much for me, but I know he had some fans. I know there were a lot of people that liked him and thought he actually was drafted too low in the 5th round. He's a guy I'd take a look at, but he's not a guy that I would want to claim and put right on the 53. But that's just based on what I saw. If this coaching staff were to do that, then I would trust them. It's Super Zeke the Freak says Jake Hayner will get picked up by someone. It's too bad Ryan Grubb's not playing in the league anymore, or coaching in the league anymore, because he had him at Fresno State. But Scott Huff is on the I think he's coaching tight ends for the Rams. And I already mentioned, like, they could use another young quarterback with some development ahead of him. Maybe that's a fit there. All right, I'm going to give this about 10 more minutes, you guys. And then you know that the second I end this stream, that it's going to come out. Right? Oh, here's some breaking news. Dylan Moore is signing with the Rangers on a minor league deal. Oh, I love this. Thanks, Corey. Thanks for sharing the stream. All right, let's do a couple more refreshes. So what's happening in practice right now is the media guys are inside. They're in the media room. They're not allowed to watch or report on anything going on at practice right now. So the cuts have been finalized. The roster's set, and they're all out there practicing. We just aren't going to know until practice is over, which is about an hour from now, and I can't quite hang around for that. I may be able to react to it on Twitter shortly before 5 o'clock. But at least we do know, thanks to Greg, that Ivy and O'Toole appear to have made this roster. And I would count O'Toole to this point as the biggest surprise. I think it probably means they're keeping only one of Brandon Peely or Quentin Bohanna. Peely could be a candidate for the injured reserve list. He was dealing with a little something this last week. Okay, here's some interesting information from Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network. Let's see. She's just trying to make the point that, you know, some of these guys that are cut still end up having decent careers. Of the 386 players that were cut between August 19th and August 27th of 2024, 15 of them played in 17 regular season games, and 96 of them started in a regular season games. In a regular season game. So what's the point she's trying to make? Is it that some of the players cut before cutdown still have a history or still have a future in the league? Interesting. Not what I thought it was going to be. I thought that stat was going to reference. I thought it was going to reference how many guys cut on the cut to 53 make it in the league. Cole Strange is intriguing. Really intriguing. Let me do something. Let's go back and look at Lance Zierlein's assessment of him during draft season, because I'm just not familiar with his scheme background. I know he had some injury issues that he had to come back from, but is he a zone guy? That's interesting. Usually, anytime I type in an NFL player's name and the word combine, is NFL.com. There it is. Okay. Google was messing with me there for a second. Zerline gave him a 6.29, will eventually be an average starter. That's how overdrafted everybody thought he was at pick number 29. A 93 out of 100 athleticism score, which means he was the most athletic guard at the 2022 Combine. He ranked first out of everybody. 5-second 40-yard dash, 1.73 10-yard split, a 28-inch vertical jump, a 10-foot broad jump, a 7.44 cone, a 4.5 20-yard shuttle, and 31 reps on the bench press. Played left guard primarily. Yep, played only left guard in college. Wins with lateral quickness and understanding of angles as a move blocker. So yeah, he's a scheme fit. It would be interesting. But again, with the dearth of talent, to use John Schneider's words, and how much around the league teams are desperate for offensive line, it would be, the Seahawks are 18th in waiver order. You're probably having to claim that dude. I doubt he gets all the way through. Although he is in the third year of a rookie deal, and so you'd have to assume a cap hit. Let's see what his contract is and what that looks like if you were to assume that contract. Maybe that helps him get through waivers. He is, he's got a $4 million cap number this year. 1.5 of that's prorated signing bonus, so the signing team is only responsible for his guaranteed base salary of $2.4 million. That might be enough for him to get all the way through waivers, and then he becomes a free agent, gets to pick and choose. That's interesting. I would be, let's see. He only played in 3 games last year. And only played in 10 games the year before that because of injury. Not sure what those injuries were. Again, yeah, Sean, he might, just based on talent and need. But again, that $3 million number, that's not, or $2.4 million. If you claim a guy, you have to assume his contract. And that might be enough to dissuade certain teams from claiming him for a guy that they're not certain has a role on the team. Right? Yeah, and Bertie says, keep in mind that McDaniels was running some outside zone in Pat's camp, and they still cut him. They cut a lot of interesting dudes and a lot of like recently drafted guys. There's a culture change there, and they clearly, when you look at their cut list, were just trying to make some sweeping changes and kind of build a new identity. Yeah, there's a lot of chatter still about, like, how come we couldn't get more than a 7th round pick for Michael Jarrell? Because nobody was offering more than a 7th round pick. You're only worth what someone's willing to pay. And so I find this odd that there's people out there criticizing John Schneider right now for, I don't know, I guess because you think he was worth more than a 7th round pick, which he clearly wasn't, that he should have just been on the roster because you don't want to give up on a sixth round pick from a year ago. So you'd rather keep a guy on your roster that the coaches don't believe is a better player than somebody else. I never understood that philosophy. Are any of you going to lose your shit if Mason Richmond gets cut this year? Or Bryce Cable do? Are you losing your shit because Damian Martinez or Ricky White got cut this year? No. Most draft picks get cut. No, that's not the way I wanted to word that. It's extremely rare when every draft pick from your most recent draft makes the team. unless it's one of those really small draft picks because you traded a bunch of picks away. It's even more rare for all your draft picks from a year ago to still be on your roster. It's just not that big a deal. Michael Jarrell could turn out to be an all-pro right tackle for the Falcons at some point. But these coaches, this front office, this staff, we're talking dozens of people who are experts in their field, didn't like the upside. Didn't believe he was going to become a player worthy of keeping on this roster right now. And I'm not going to lose a second of sleep over that. Hey, John, did you get your shirt? It was supposed to be there yesterday. If not, check your mailbox. All right, let's do another check. Let's go over here. Come on. Come on, Seahawks. For crying out loud. The Miami Dolphins have released Pharaoh Brown. DJ Dallas and Stone Forsythe are free agents again. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything till practice is over. And so if Mookie said he had, see on my schedule, August 26th, I don't know if you can see that. Nope, it's too blurry. It says 3:20 to 4:45. But if it did start at 1:10, as most of their practices do, then it's scheduled to wrap up at 3:30. I cannot hang with you until then, unfortunately. So let's just do this one more time. God, how about Cal Raleigh, you guys? 50 home runs for a catcher is insane. Absolutely insane. All right, I'm going to check this one last time. Still nothing official on their website. Still nothing being reported any further by reporters on the scene because they can't be watching. Yeah. All right, so I think really the biggest thing that I'm waiting to see is what do they do with their reserve offensive line? Does Haynes potentially go on injured reserve? Do they keep both Cable Dew and Richmond? I don't think there's any chance they keep LeMaya, although it's really, really interesting to me that we're not getting more agent leaks, that we're not finding out about any more of these players. Because if I look at let me count what I've got on my tracker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So my list of players that have been officially announced as being released is at 15. So that leaves 23 more players that need to be released or needed to be released by 1 o'clock. That means there's 23 players out there that know they're not on the team anymore and their agents have not said anything. That is, that's a little irritating. So let me just do one more pass through. For those of you listening on audio, I apologize. This is not very scintillating content. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else. Kick Up says I'm hypocritical at times. How so? I'm wrong quite a bit. But if I'm hypocritical, point it out to me and I'll either try to justify it or tip my cap and say I didn't realize I was contradicting myself at that time. But hey, I'm open to criticism. Bring it. Everyone's hypocritical at times, right? Yeah. Dang it, you guys. I really, really wanted the final list, or at least some more news. Like, how can the Seahawks be so good at keeping things such under wraps that agents aren't even tweeting this stuff out? Yeah, this is this is a great reminder. In fact, let me do this, you guys, because I want to share this with you in case you haven't seen it yet. I'm so stoked about the way this turned out, and I'm really, really excited about this whole thing. Where did I put it? Come on. Let's go. We are launching a new show tomorrow, which will be the last Wednesday of every month. It's myself. It's Bryce Coots. Well, here, let me do this. I found it. Hang on. Oh, my goodness. I hate when technology decides not to work when you're live on a live stream. Just annoying. Okay, let's do this. We are debuting tomorrow the Seahawks Syndicate. Myself, Brandon Kane from the Hawks Nest, Bryce Coots of the Hawks Eye podcast. If you haven't subscribed to his new show, get over there and do that. And Mookie Alexander from Field Goals. The last Wednesday of every month, we're going to get together, the four of us, and do a show recapping the month behind and looking forward to the next one. So we will at least have an official 53-man roster tomorrow. Although keep in mind, the 53 that's set today could change again before tomorrow. That happens. Hopefully we'll have practice squad announcements as well. If not, we'll have enough leaks, hopefully, again, from agents and sometimes the players themselves, that we'll be able to talk about how we feel about the practice squad group. In years past, the Seahawks have been also annoyingly late in announcing their practice squad, but often that's because they have to account for the financial part of it, and they've had to actually adjust some contracts and make some moves before they can officially sign their practice squad, and so they couldn't announce it. That's not the case this year. There's no concerns about their cap space at the moment, so hopefully we'll learn that tomorrow. But the Seahawks Syndicate, that'll be the last Wednesday of every month. You don't have to subscribe to a new channel or anything like that. We're going to rotate it. It's going to start out on my channel this time, and then we're going to rotate it between the three of us that have shows. But will always be live, and it'll always be streamed back to all three of our websites or our YouTube channels. So you'll be able to watch it wherever you prefer. And you'll be able to contribute, because we want these to be live so we can get some discussion. These are probably, knowing all of our history, and probably be pretty long shows. So it's once a month, but probably be pretty long shows. But I'm super, super excited about it. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. DeWin, I did not, I haven't updated my board yet, but it does look like he's made the team. Greg Bell tweeted some video of him working out before. Yeah, McKeon Silver says, why do they do this every year? That's just the way they operate. It's their deal. Hey, there it is. John McGrath. Take that back. Just went and checked the mail. The shirt's indeed there. Sorry it took so long. It literally, I've been driving around all over the country in the last month with it in, Ziploc bag, tag still on it, all nice and neat in the back of my car. And then the other day I was running errands, and I drove right by a post office. I was like, got to pull in there. Got to get this shirt to John finally. So my bad. I may have a visor to give away soon too, but I'll try to be better about sending that out. Let's see. Yeah. Should we all show up to the first show in black suits? Because that's a badass look, right? I'll say this, like, I have major issues with some aspects of AI, but and I've spent hours before trying to get AI to build me a piece of artwork, and and I can't get it to do it. It'll like duplicate words and logos and things like that. And despite how many times this one on the first try gave me a really good one, and then the second try gave me a really good one too. This just turned out so great. I love it so much. I'm really looking forward to the show for sure. I think it's at 5:00 kick up. 5 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow. Yeah. And here's the thing about AI too. There's some stuff I like about it. There's some stuff I absolutely hate and it terrifies me and we should all be scared. Like, young people, kids, write your own stuff. Just learn how to write your own stuff. Don't use AI for that. But stuff like this, like creating art, is pretty freaking cool, actually, as long as you stay away from music. That's another huge issue I have. But the pictures I had to give him, the only one I had available of Mookie was like the lighting wasn't great on his face, and it was kind of shaded. And so I was worried about what they were going to be able to do with it. And then they made him look so badass like that with the hat on him and everything else. We were talking about it in our group chat yesterday about how me and Brandon look like older and more weathered and aged, which I just chalk up to we've buried more bodies. We've killed more dudes. Mookie does look tough. He does have aura, man. It's good stuff. Yeah, there's Bryce. Can't wait for the show. Yep, 5 o'clock Pacific time. That's when we're gonna go tomorrow. Son of a... John says, you guys look like the backup band for the Blues Brothers. I'll push back on that. We look like the opening band for the Blues Brothers. How's that? I think that's a little better. X-Wing likes it. Bryce looks like he should be getting residuals from Sopranos. The first one of these that I did, the picture I used for Bryce had a ball cap on. And so it did it with that. And I was like, I need to try this again because we need to get a thug hat on him. They just decided to go hatless with me. I wonder what I'd look like. Might have to get one of those hats. All right, let's refresh one more time. Nothing. Son of a gun. All right, well, I'm going to do you guys all a favor, and I'm going to end this and log off because then the list will come out any moment. Thanks for watching, you guys. I will be back. Who's the Don? Peter says. I think it looks like Mookie, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe Brandon with that expression. Like, it just feels like he's about to say something that's going to sound just like Don Corleone from The Godfather, right? He's going to say, hey, watch our show. I'm terrible at impressions. I can't do impressions. I can't even do it. Maybe we'll build an intro at some point and use like a voice filter so that we can sound like that. Anyway, that'll be tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And we will be able to break all of this down. It'll be on all of our channels. Again, watch for that. If you follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever or any of the other guys, you'll get that from them as well. Brady Henderson's going to join me Thursday morning. So watch for that some part middle of the day Thursday. And then before I hit the road next weekend to head back to the East Coast, I'm going to be doing a fantasy football episode with the fantasy football analyst going to be joining me talking about, how he thinks some of the Seahawks players will do. And then we'll be getting into regular season mode next week. Looking forward to the Seahawks. So thanks, you guys. Really appreciate it. And hey, look at this. Hate City Grandpa, Seahawks fan who just moved to Charleston, West Virginia. Love the show. I'll be back in South Charleston, St. Albans, in 9 days, 10 days, Thursday of next week, 8 days. I can't do math. Anyway. Yeah, space, you're right. AI probably is going to kill us, but in the meantime, I'm going to try to get as many cool thumbnails and things out of it as I can. Yeah. Bryce says he looked like Luke Combs in the first picture with the baseball hat, but now he looks like a gangsta. All right, you guys, thanks. Enjoy the official news when it actually hits. And, if anything crazy happens, maybe I'll do a late night sort of a Seahawks Forever After Dark later, but if not, we'll see you tomorrow on the Seahawks Syndicate. Thanks, guys. Wait a minute. Forever and always go Hawks. Almost forgot the catchphrase. See ya.